Hi and welcome. I'm Hania and this is the first episode of BIM Decoded. I'm really glad you're here. You know, when I started in this industry, I thought BIM was going to be straightforward. A tool, a process. Learn it, apply it, move on. But after spending years watching teams struggle and succeed with it, I realized something. Almost nobody talks about what's actually happening on real projects. If you clicked on this, chances are you've been around BIM for a while. Maybe you've been promised a lot by it. Maybe you've invested in it. Time, money, training, tools. And maybe somewhere along the way you started wondering, is this actually working? You're not alone in that, and that's exactly what this series is about. I've seen beautiful projects. I've seen messy ones. I watched teams celebrate handovers, and I watched teams quietly give up halfway through because nothing was landing the way it was supposed to. And the story I want to tell you today, the very first story of this series, is about a gap. A gap between what BIM was promised to be and what it actually looks like in most real projects. Because I think if we don't start here, nothing else I say in the next episode is going to make sense. So let's start with what people are told. If you read the books, watch the tutorials, attend the conferences, the story you hear is beautiful. BIM is fast, BIM is clean, BIM is collaborative. Your data flows across disciplines. Clashes get caught automatically. Quantities come out of the model at the click of a button. Handover is seamless. The building is operated from a living digital twin. Everything is connected. Everything is flawless, and everything just works. And honestly, when you watch it presented on stage, it does look like magic. The global BIM market was worth $97.86 billion in 2024 and is projected to reach $286 billion by 2032. This is a massive industry, growing fast and promising a lot. But here's the thing that nobody tells you on stage. The reality on most BIM projects doesn't feel like magic. It feels like extra work. It feels like another layer of meetings. It feels like a process that nobody fully understands, but everyone is supposed to follow. And the numbers back this up. 98% of mega projects suffer cost overruns of more than 30%. 77% of large projects are at least 40% behind the schedule. Rework alone accounts for over $65 billion annually in the US construction industry. On large projects, up to 30% of total costs are linked to rework that could have been avoided by early clash detection. 1 in 3 construction projects fails because of the poor communication. And over 14 hours per person per week are lost looking for project data. Stop and think about that for a second. 14 hours per person every week, chasing information that should have been right there. This is an industry we actually work in, not the one in the brochures. And at this point, most people walk away from BIM saying, we tried it, it didn't work for us. That's the moment I want to stop and talk about. Because that sentence, we tried BIM and it didn't work, is almost always wrong. It wasn't BIM that didn't work. BIM is not a tool. It's not a piece of software. It's not even a deliverable. BIM is a strategy, and like any strategy, it only works when the foundation underneath is solid. That foundation for BIM has 3 parts. A structure that defines how information is supposed to flow through the project. A team with the knowledge and flexibility to work differently from the classic construction world. And a shared understanding of what data we are producing, why we are producing it, and what we will do with it later. When you have all three, BIM becomes the most powerful thing that has ever happened to a project. Design decisions get made faster. Coordination gets sharper. Handover becomes valuable. Operations get easier. And of course, future projects benefit from what you learned on this one. But when you're missing even one of them, BIM collapses into file exchange, meetings, and frustration. So there's no magic without a backbone. And before anyone thinks I'm being too pessimistic, let me share something important. When BIM is done with the right foundation, the numbers change dramatically. BIM-based planning reduces total construction costs by approximately 8.6% and project duration by 12.3% compared to conventional methods. Mature clash detection workflows reduce rework costs by up to 30% and keep projects on schedule. 80 to 90% of contractors on major projects now use clash detection. Structured BIM and COBie handover data reduces facility work order processing time by 8.7%. So the technology works, the methodology works, and the outcomes are real. The question is never whether BIM delivers value. The question is whether your project is set up to let it. So if you have had a bad experience with BIM, or if you've heard the horror stories and you're nervous about starting, I want you to hear this clearly. It's not because you weren't smart enough. It's not because your team wasn't capable. It's not because the software failed you. It was just because something underneath was missing and nobody told you what that something was. That's what this series is going to give you. And I want to be really clear about one more thing. Nothing about BIM replaces your expertise. Not the tools, not the standards, not the workflows, not even the AI we are going to talk about later. So if you're an architect, a contractor, a trade, an owner, an operator, your knowledge of how buildings actually get built and run is the most valuable thing on any project. BIM is here to amplify that expertise, to take that part of your job that drain you, like the duplicate data entry, the endless coordination calls, the lost information at handover, and make them lighter. So you can do more of what you're actually good at. This is a mindset shift and a cultural shift more than a technology shift. And here is the uncomfortable part. The industry is moving, quietly but fast. BIM adoption is now mandatory for public projects in many countries like in the UK, France, Germany, Singapore, China, Spain, and several US states. The industry is projected to grow at 14 to 15% per year through 2033. Data is leaving file servers and moving into the cloud. Projects are moving from paper-based contracts to database agreements. Owners are starting to ask for things that couldn't be delivered 5 years ago. And the companies that figure this out are pulling ahead of the ones that don't. If you sit this one out, the gap is going to widen. If you catch it now, you are ahead. That's not a scare, that's just where we are. So here's what I'd love you to walk away with from this first episode. BIM was never broken. It was just misunderstood and badly supported. The projects that failed didn't fail because of the idea. They failed because nobody explained the whole picture. This series is going to give you that whole picture, without the jargon thrown at you for its own sake, without pretending something is simple when it's not, and without ever treating your expertise like it's a problem. Over the next few episodes, we are going to look at where the money actually goes on a BIM project and why your team feels so tired. What it means to treat BIM as a strategic game instead of a software choice, and eventually, we will go all the way through to how your project data becomes an asset that keeps giving back long after the building is handed over. If any of this resonated with you, stick around. The next episodes build on this one, and I promise they get even more practical. I'm so glad that you started this journey with me. See you in episode 2.